All right, so hello everyone and welcome to How to Prepare for the Fair. My name is Kevin Keneally and I'm a career advisor at the University Career Center here on campus. Today, I'm going to be walking you through how to engage in career fairs, and we'll also be giving you giving you a demo on how to access and navigate a virtual career fair here at UMD. So to prepare for the fair, there are quite a few steps that you should take to have the best experience possible. There's certainly some homework that you should conduct about employers ahead of time. Then there are some best practices during the fair that can help make a good impression. And then finally, a lot of students might miss this part, but the follow-up is a really, really important piece post-fair. And so I'm going to kind of provide you with some details about all of these kind of portions of the fair and what to consider. And so that you can have a good experience while you are experiencing the fair yourself. And I will, especially on the note of the post-fair planning too, I'm going to give you some examples of how you might even write some of those messages as well. Great. So the first thing I want to do though, since I imagine many of you might not have engaged in a virtual fair before, maybe you engaged in some of our virtual fairs last year, but it can be kind of a confusing process when it's something you're engaging in the first time. So I want to share this video to give you a sense of what it looks like to engage in a fair on a virtual platform and how it works, so that hopefully it can kind of answer a lot of your questions that you might have. And this is also on our YouTube channel. So as the video is running, I'm going to put a link in the chat so that you can kind of visit on your own time as well. But also, this is a video that I created, so you're going to continue to hear my voice during this video, but I think it will help us kind of ground our conversation as we move forward. So without further ado, let me get this into full screen. And if you have any audio issues, I'm going to unmute it here once it gets to 17 seconds when I want to start it. But if you have any audio issues, please feel free to write in the chat and I can navigate it, but everything should be good. So let's get going. So we host our career fairs on Careers for Terps. So the first step is to log into Careers for Terps, which you can access by going to this URL up here, careers.umd.edu/careers-for-terps. Then you'll click on Students and sign in with your UMD credentials. Once you sign in, you will see this homepage on Careers for Terps. And then on this left navigation bar, you're going to want to go to Events/Career Fairs. This will bring you to the full list of our events. You can use the keyword search. What I would recommend here is sorting by type. You can sort by career fairs, hit apply, and then all of the career fairs that are currently scheduled will show on the list here. I'm going to use this demo career fair to walk you through this process. So this is what the career fair will look like when you arrive. The first thing you're going to want to do is click this attend button. You'll be able to say that you're online. You can add your resume, so that you can upload multiple resumes and select which resume you would like to share with employers on Careers for Terps. And then it will also show your profile. And so this will show your degree, when you're going to graduate. And so if you see any incorrect information here, you can certainly edit it. If you go up to the top here and click on your initials, you'll see a button that says personal information, academic career information, and you can edit your information there. Once you're ready though, you'll see these few tabs here. So overview, employers, and video chats. Overview will give you a little bit of basic information about the fair, but the main chunk of the fair exists on this employers tab. And so here, for the purposes of this demo fair, we have 2 representatives online. However, in a normal career fair, you would see a lot more employers on here. And essentially what I want to show you here is if you were to click on an employer they were interested in, you'll see a full about page. This isn't necessarily filled out because it's a demo fair. However, they'll here provide information about their company, maybe some contact information, maybe some of the hiring opportunities that they have, whether they're jobs or internships. And so there you can find some more information. And then I'll go back really quickly. You'll see there are also two pieces, two types of ways that you can engage with employers. And so one way is through a group chat. So if you click on an employer's name, they might write it in their about description as well. But if you see group chat and that's something that they're offering, you'll be able to click on this and then you'll see instructions about how to join their group chat. This essentially means that they are not necessarily providing a one-on-one session. Maybe they're providing one-on-one and group chats. They'll be clear about that in their description. And so that is a way for you to engage with employers in the career fair. Another way for you to engage is to join a queue and to meet with an employer one-on-one. And so you'll see here this join queue button. You'll also see, if I go back to the full employer list, the little speech bubble with the plus on it. That's how you join a queue. And then in this section on the right, you have upcoming video chats. There you will see any queues that you have joined. You can join up to 5 queues at once. And I'll kind of explain that a little bit more shortly after this. However, what I want to show you here is if you were to join this queue, what happens when an employer might invite you. So I have joined the queue for University of Maryland. You see that here it says that I have an upcoming video chat with the University of Maryland. My estimated wait time is 10 minutes. Usually that would mean that there is one person in line before you, because it will often say 10 minutes is the length of one expected appointment. So if there are 3 people in front of you, it might say 30 minutes. And that's essentially how that works there. And so at this point, we're just going to wait a second to get the invite for University of Maryland. And so when this invite will pop up, I have a coworker helping me with this. Once the invite will pop up, it will pop up at the top. And so then we will be able to join the chat, and it will offer us a button that we click on, and then it will show us whether they're meeting on Zoom or Google Meet or WebEx or any video platform that they might be using. It will provide the link to join that call so that you can have a one-on-one conversation with the employer. So now we see the University of Maryland is ready to chat. So we'll click on Join Chat. And then here is where you will see, this is we're not going to join this for this sample video. However, if you were actually in the fair and you were about to meet with this employer, you would see the name of their representative there, and you would be able to join their call by using this. And so one thing I will mention is that you will be able to have the employer access your resume simply by uploading it earlier. You don't necessarily need to share it with them separately. You also get their contact information here. So the system is kind of built to make this an easy process for you. And then once you are done with the chat, you'll be able to leave, in this case, the Zoom call. You'll be back at this screen and you can hit End Chat. Once you hit End Chat, you will see the chat summary. So you'll see what time you met with them, how long it was, who you met with, and then you will be able to take notes on your call. And so you can maybe make a note about, a piece of conversation that you had, whether that was you learned about an internship opportunity or you learned about what this company does that was really exciting to you. So then I will just, for this purpose, write, we had a good meeting. Obviously, you want to be a little bit more detailed than that on the day of. But that's essentially how it works. And then, so it will be logged in your video chats section. So then any video chats that you have, you'll be able to click on it, review your notes that you had written before, add to your notes, and then essentially you would go back if you're looking to engage further in the fair, you'd go back to the employer list and start all over by adding yourself to a queue or joining a group chat. Great. So I think that's a good spot to stop the video. One thing I will say too, obviously, like I mentioned before, you'll be able to ask questions towards the end of the workshop today. However, one thing I will say too is for those queues, you could see that you have 5 queues that you can get into. A question that we get a lot is what happens, if I'm at the front of 2 queues at the exact same time? What if there are 2 employers that I'm essentially scheduled to meet with at the same time? That's something you don't necessarily have to worry about too much because the system kind of helps you out there. So if you were to be invited to one conversation with an employer and you accepted that, then the system would note you as busy for the other employer, and you would not lose your place in line. They would just not be able to invite you until you're out of that previous call. And then the system will recognize that you are not busy anymore. And then the next employer would be able to invite you. Great. So I hope that was helpful. And like I said, certainly ask questions. So let me quickly just pull up my notes again here. So now that you know what you might expect to see during the virtual career fair, let's kind of talk through some of the pieces of preparation that you can do to make your experience meaningful during the fair. So I'll break down these pieces more in a minute, but I just kind of want to give you an idea of where we're going. So I'm going to talk a little bit about doing research to prepare for the fair beforehand, as well as doing, so work on your resume and preparing your resume beforehand as well. And then also planning which days you might want to attend the fair. One thing I will say on that, in the past, the fair, when it's been in person, it's often been 3 days. Since we've been doing virtual fairs, the main fall career internship fair, as well as the spring one, have been 2 days. So I will say the fair this week on Thursday and Friday, the 23rd and 24th. 23rd is a STEM focused day. And then the 24th is all industries, including STEM as well. But, if you are someone who is not necessarily interested in STEM opportunities, maybe Friday is a better day for you to go. But if you are interested in STEM, either day would be good, but especially the first day. So, as you saw in the video, you can check out the full list of employers that are attending the fair. Obviously, in the video, there were only 2. However, if you go to Careers for Terps, and that's our home page of our website that you see there. But if you go to Careers for Terps up there in the top left and go to the events page, even before the event actually starts, and you go to the specific fair that you want to see who's attending, whether it's the fall career and internship fair or say the computer science fair that's happening next week, you can click on that and then see the full list of employers beforehand. So a note on that I want to make too is I'd encourage you not to try your best not to scroll past employers you've never heard of before. I think it's good for career fair to try to keep an open mind. And because of the name recognition, naturally, some employers are going to be more popular than others. And so that means that the wait time to engage with those employers will often be a lot longer. Although, and on the flip side, you might be able to engage with a great employer that has a fantastic opportunity for you that just because they're smaller, they maybe will have a smaller line as well. So certainly, look to engage with the folks that you are excited about. However, I'd encourage you to keep an open mind. A few other notes I want to make about researching beforehand too. So when you're conducting your research about employers that are visiting the fair, think about the fact that the research can inform your conversation and the impression that you make. So you want to try to be able to make a strong statement that you can share with an employer about why you're interested in interning for them, working for them, learning more. And so, thinking about those pieces that will, make you stand out in that way in some of the research. So, for example, you could say something like, based on your research, right? I saw on your website that some of your major clients include Nike or Aldi or Waze for brand identity, digital designs, and campaigns. I also noticed that your organization was ranked in the top 100 internship sites by Vault based on your training program and company culture. I'd love to hear more about the social media internship you have posted in Careers for Terps. So essentially, you're trying to find some specific information that you can kind of speak back to them. So, you can go to their website, learn some more about what they're doing, do some research and seeing kind of what other, publications are saying about this organization, as well as doing maybe some research onto what internships or jobs they have available beforehand so that you can ask specifically about them. And one thing I will say too, is you want to make sure that you investigate that organization's history before you make contact, so that first impression is strong. And one also little side quick tip that I don't have on the screen here, just a tiny thing. Try not to call a government agency or a nonprofit organization a company. That's not typically how they identify themselves. So, obviously maybe like for-profit corporations might be referred to as companies, but be mindful of that. So a few other final pieces on research beforehand. As a reminder, you'll be able to express that you're attending the fair and that you'll be able to, view all the employers coming that day. Remember that, like I said before too, there are multiple days of the fair and that the employers will change for each day. So make sure that when you're doing that research, you look separately at the different days, which in the events calendar, they're listed as 2 separate events. So that's how you'd kind of see that. Also make sure that you, like I said in the video as well, update your profile. So make sure that you're listed as the right major, the right class year. It should be all, current, but sometimes, especially if you recently switched majors, sometimes it takes a little bit to update. So just make sure that information is correct. And then also make sure to upload your resume as well. Those 3 pieces that I highlighted in this screenshot are things you want to make sure to keep an eye out for. Other pieces to try to research too are listed here, like mission, vision, values, projects they're working on, and maybe looking into some industry insights. Through Careers for Terps, we actually have access to this great resource called Vault. And so if you sign to Careers for Terps, exactly where you'd go, right, to access the fair. On your homepage, if you scroll down, you'll see a box that says online resources, and you'll see Vaults there. And then you can type in search terms based on industries that you're interested in, and then kind of find out some maybe big players in that industry, maybe find out some insider information about that industry as well. Great. So I'm going to transition now to talk about resume tips. I know I mentioned that resumes are one big piece of what you want to make sure that you're preparing for, or one big piece of how you're preparing for the fair. So, I'm not going to go maybe into the most depth here just for the purposes of this workshop. However, I will talk about some ways that you can engage with us this week and before any career fairs to get maybe some more in-depth feedback on your resume specifically as well. But on the general notes, I want to touch on a few things, one being that font size, try to keep it between 10 and 12 points. If you don't have too much experience to put on your resume. And so, you're trying to fill up your resume a little bit more. Maybe having 12-point font will be helpful. However, maybe you're in your first year on campus and you're asking yourself, how do I, think about, filling a whole page of a resume or sorry, I wanted to say if you're really experienced, and you're also then thinking about, like, oh, I've got a lot to fit onto this page, then maybe 10-point font can be helpful. Similar on margins can help with that spacing, go down to 1/2 inch at a minimum on any of the sides. A few other notes include, when you're a first year student, listing some high school experience is okay. However, I'd say once you become a sophomore or later, you kind of want to pull some of those high school experiences off and try to represent some more of your on-campus experiences or internships or jobs that you've had as a college student. Make sure that you list your experiences in reverse chronological order. So that means the most recent experiences will be at the top of a section. Try to keep your formatting consistent. So, if you're using periods at the end of your descriptions, use periods at the end of every description. Try to keep your dates listed in the same place. Try to, if you bold your job title, make sure to bold all your job titles, those kinds of pieces. And then the last piece on here for general notes, try to avoid excessive white space. That kind of goes back to what I was talking about with the fonts a little bit. Also try to avoid using Microsoft Word templates. They're not the worst thing. However, they're often very restrictive and don't necessarily make you stand out too much. So to go into a little bit more specifics, I want to talk a bit about highlighting experiences on your resume. Obviously, like I said, we can, talk about ways for you to engage and get your resume resume reviewed one-on-one during this week to talk about these things very specific to you. However, some things to keep in mind as you're writing your descriptions for your experiences on your resume are these few questions. So 1, what were your responsibilities? 2, what knowledge, skills, and abilities were used in your role? And 3, do your bullet points effectively describe what you did, how you accomplished it, why the task was important, and or what impact your performance had within the organization? With these bullet points that you might be writing on a resume, you don't necessarily want to look at your job description or the job posting for even from when you applied initially and just copy and paste that on there. You want to make sure that you're speaking actively about what you did and the impact that you had, the skills that you learned from that experience. You want to be able to kind of give some detail to what you did in that position. Great. And so then another resource that we have as well on the Career Center site that you can go through on your own, are our resume samples. So if you go to this website, you can also, easily find this if you go to our main website, but if you go to this full link, this will take you straight to the resume samples. And so you can think about looking at maybe some resume samples based on your industry of interest. We have examples that are good for folks that are going into maybe technical fields like computer science or information science or engineering. But then we also have a lot of resumes that are great examples of if you're interested in going into the arts or graphic design or communication or public relations, and then we also have them tailored for, if you're early on in your college career or if you're late in your college career. So definitely recommend taking a look at those. They should give you some good ideas about how you might be able to craft your own resume. And, you can definitely think about, how they apply to you. So this is just a couple of the samples that we have on our website. The point that I want to make here is not necessarily that we're going to go through these resumes. The point that I want to make here is that you can see that these are relatively clean and traditional. in how they look. So these often are the kinds of resumes that you're going to want to create in almost any field that you're interested in. I think the main exception is if you are, interested in going into graphic design or a creative field, then you can showcase maybe some of your, skills in those areas on a resume by, creating a logo, using color, and adding different graphic design elements to a resume. I think otherwise, though, I encourage you to use a pretty traditional format for a resume. One of the main reasons being that sometimes, especially if you're applying to a larger organization, they'll use what is called applicant tracking software. So that means that essentially they will have some kind of software that allows them to say, okay, here are the keywords and phrases that we want to see on these resumes. And we are going to feed it through the software before a human even gets to see this resume. So if you don't hit a certain percentage threshold of those keywords and phrases, then you might not have anyone see your resume. And so it's easier for those programs to read these traditional resume formats than it is a graphic design resume. However, in that graphic design or creative field, applicant tracking software is not going to be used to read those resumes most often. Great, so let's move on. So essentially, we're kind of transitioning into a little bit of now, what does it look like maybe once you're starting to talk to some of these folks at the fair? And so some of you might have heard of an elevator pitch or a 30-second pitch. Essentially, this is a way for you to engage with an employer and to have a very specific and intentional effort to, help them to know who you are and why you are interested or qualified for a position that you might be, taking a look at. And so I'd encourage you, we're not necessarily going to do it actively during this presentation. However, I would encourage you to take some time on your own over the next, few days before the fair starts and try to craft your own 30-second pitch. They can be really helpful in terms of making that instant connection, especially in a career fair where folks, the folks that are there representing their company, their organization, they're seeing a lot of students on those days. So whatever you can do to help yourself to stand out from the crowd can be really helpful. So some things you can think about is, sharing, obviously your name, but your degree, when you're graduating, what you may have been involved in the past that relates to, the company or the position that you're interested in. If you are interested in a specific position that they have available, maybe mentioning some specifics about why you're qualified. And then also maybe thinking about how, based on what your interest might be, you might not have an idea of like, oh, this is exactly what I want my career to be 20 years from now. And that's okay. But if you even have an interest about, okay, my next step, this is what I want to do, thinking about, talking about, what you are saying you're interested in about their company, their organization, their internships, how that ties in with your maybe immediate future goals or long-term future goals, depending on, where you're at and your comfortability with that. So I want to give a quick sample of a 30-second pitch. So I'll read this out loud. The sample is, hello, I'm Penny Prepped, and I'm sophomore majoring in psychology, hoping to work in human resources, and noticed on Careers for Terps that you have a human resources internship posted. Right now, I work part-time at Macy's as a sales associate, and now I'm hoping to go more into the corporate side of retail and a human resources role. Can you tell me a little bit more about your HR internship? So super simple. You kind of you want to emphasize that 30-second piece. It can even be shorter sometimes. I think that one even is shorter. But you want to, this one does give the employer some insight into a specific relevant experience they might have, being that part-time experience at Macy's, and it also shows that in this example, Penny did a little bit of research beforehand, so they know that this organization has a human resources internship available beforehand. I also want to say, an important piece here is you might not always have related experience prior to talking to an employer, and that's okay. So, if you can think of anything in your experience, whether, if it's not necessarily a job or an internship or a volunteer opportunity, if, you had an experience in a class, or if you went to a career panel at the Career Center, whatever it might be that prompted your interest in that field, if you can name that specifically, that can be really helpful as well, because that insight helps them to maybe get a better feel for you. Great. And then, obviously, then you, after maybe introduce yourself, the conversation opens up, and it's a chance for you to ask a lot of questions. So as far as questions you can think about, you want to lead with the questions that you have based on your research. So, for instance, I know we've talked about, if you find a specific job or internship posting, ask specifically about it. And you can see in the first question here, it says, I see that X, Y, and Z skills are important for this internship. Can you tell me about additional skills? So if you find that posting online, you can make note, these are the skills they're looking for. So you can ask specifically about them. That should be something that impresses a lot of employers. You can also think about asking questions like, what skills and capacities do you hope the intern would learn as a result of their experience? What's a typical day like, or what's the hiring timeline? So one thing you can also think about with these questions is sometimes it can be helpful to even lead with a little statement before the question. So you can think about the statement as maybe something you're speaking about your experience before. And so you could say, I've had X experience through a course, and it, helped me to grow some interest as it relates to this position. It seems like it might be related, and I was hoping that you might be able to offer me some more information as to how that might tie in. So those are some example questions you can think about. And then I want to talk about a few other notes about what you can think about during the fair. One is certainly make sure you dress appropriately. I know this is a virtual fair, so you're thinking you're going to be on Zoom, you're going to be on Google Meet, WebEx. Make sure that you maybe go with some business casual. I'd make sure also that your Zoom background is appropriate. Certainly make sure obviously that the lighting's good. I know we've been through a lot of Zoom over the past year and a half, so I think we all kind of know what that might mean, but definitely want to make note of that. Make sure also to take notes during your conversation, and remember that you have the opportunity to enter and save your notes after you engage with an employer directly in Careers for Terps. So that's a good practice to get into. Like I said multiple times, show that you've done your research. And overall, keep an open mind. Just because you might not have been thinking of a specific employer before, shouldn't stop you necessarily from talking to them. You might be in the fair and see that a lot of people have longer wait times, but you might see some folks that have zero wait time. And you never know, you might find an incredible opportunity by taking a chance and seeing what that organization or company might have for you. Great. And then after the fair, certainly want to make sure you follow up, contact employers via email. Like I showed you in that video, you'll be able to have the contact information of employers right after you engage with them during the career fair. And so that follow-up piece is huge. So as far as that follow-up piece, I'm not going to read this example exactly. However, some points that I want to make about this: make sure that you remind them how you met them. remind them of a point that you talked about in your conversation, and follow up on that point, especially if you took the action of maybe applying to a position that you had discussed with them. And then a few other notes that I want to make about thank you notes. Make sure that if you're sending some thank yous to them, you want to do that within 2 days of the experience that you have with them. I know I labeled this as an informational interview. We don't necessarily need to get into the details of an informational interview right now, but essentially it's all about the conversation where you're learning more about opportunities that they have in their organization, not necessarily a formal interview. Make sure, if you need a reminder, you get a reminder on your phone. Oh, sorry, my screen sharing just got paused because it minimized really quickly. Sorry about that. And then make sure to reread your notes and write about some specific takeaways, as well as talking about next steps. And so here we're going to wrap up in just a minute, but I just also want to point out we have a number of events, including multiple fairs that are happening throughout this semester as well as next semester. Namely, we have the fall career and internship fair happening this week on Thursday and Friday. There's also the computer science career and internship fair that's happening next week. And then I'd encourage you to engage in our other events as well. You can find our full events calendar at the link on the screen at careers.umd.edu/events-calendar. But then I just want to make a few last notes before I end the recording here to take some questions. I want to make a note that you can come in and engage with us in different ways to get your resume reviewed before the fair starts. So we have virtual general resume reviews with an undergraduate peer career educator. Those happen Tuesdays through Thursdays from 5 to 6 on Zoom. We also have virtual general resume reviews with University Career Center staff that are happening today through Friday from 12 to 2 on Zoom, as well as our quick career assistance with undergraduate peer career educators. This is in person, happens Mondays through Fridays from 2 to 5 p.m. And the link to sign up for those, I can put in the chat after this. It's this link down here. You can essentially find all of these to sign up for them through Careers for Terps in the events tab. We also have, like I said, the computer science fair coming up. We also have a language career and internship fair that happens in October, as well as the School of Public Health Expo, which also operates as a career fair. So I hope this was helpful for everyone. At this point, I'm going to stop the recording, but I want to thank you all for being here.